Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome into What We Learned Live following Ohio State's 38-15 win over visiting Indiana. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. I'll be joined by Heath Schneider, a.k.a. Heater. And then after postgame interviews, we'll be joined by Patrick Murphy and Steve Helwagen live from Ohio Stadium. Again, welcome to the show. Excellent performance from the Buckeyes. Inauspicious start. Did not look good early. Indiana goes right down the field. In fact, Ohio State gets the ball first, goes 3 and out. Indiana goes right down the field, 70 yards for a touchdown. It's like, oh, boy. And then you're looking at – so Indiana had 70 yards on the first drive of the game and a touchdown. And then I'm sitting there like late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, Indiana had 88 total yards for the game. So since that first drive, they got 18 yards from then. Then they got another drive late. But my point is, great job by Jim Knowles and the defense. It was a sack party. They had 5 or 6 sacks. They were getting after Rourke. It was exactly what we were saying going into the Oregon game. You have to make Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable. He never was uncomfortable. He was extremely comfortable. Rourke was not comfortable. Indiana came out with a really good script. And then, credit to Jim Knowles and this defense. Great job. But welcome into the show. That was a lot of fun. What did you guys think about Ryan Day getting that, piling on that touchdown late? I don't think he would have done it if Indiana didn't go for 2 after they scored their meaningless touchdown. It's like, okay. And there was a lot, and I even was doing it on Twitter. I was like, I give Cignetti a lot of credit. He came to Big Ten Media Day and said to Google me. Ohio State was using that, though, to their advantage. It's whatever, Michael Jordan is the best example of this. Whatever you can use to motivate yourself, go for it. In fact, Jordan, as you guys know, used to make up stuff to motivate him. So Ohio State was definitely using that. You saw Will Howard late. They showed the slow-mo replay. You don't have to be a good lip reader to him to know that he said, Google that bleep. So let's go into some of the things we learned. I mean, I thought, frankly, Chip Kelly's play calling left a lot to be desired early. I thought they were doing way too much stuff in the perimeter, too much finesse stuff. And then, it's hard to be critical when you look at the entire game. But if you look at early, I thought I didn't like Ohio State's plan coming out. It was almost the polar opposite of what we saw from Indiana. Indiana came out with a good plan and then couldn't do anything after that. You'd much rather have what Ohio State did, obviously. But disappointing Ohio State's script, whatever they came out with, was not good. You come out with 3 and out. Not good. But credit to Jim Knowles in this defense. I mean, Caleb Downs, I think, is the best safety in the country. And for him to get a punt return for a touchdown, finally, after 10 years. Jalen Marshall now has company, and we know what happened 10 years ago, so I'm sure the same thing's going to happen now. But that was awesome seeing Caleb Downs return a punt. Buckeyes dominated special teams today. When's the last time we said that in any game, let alone a big game? Top 5 game, Buckeyes dominate special teams, so that was awesome to see. It helps when, not just that punt return. It helps when, the visiting punter just drops a snap and it goes back for basically an automatic touchdown, but still dominated special teams. Jaden Fielding, we still remember that one bad missed field goal he had this year. I mean, that's the only miss he's had. So credit to him. He had another field goal today. 38-15 in a game that, people were saying, 10.5, that's too many points. Too many points. Buckeyes win by 23. More than double the point spread. With that late touchdown, I thought they were going to kneel. I thought they were going to kneel down. That was definitely a bleep U touchdown. But then Indiana did go for 2 after they scored their touchdown, as I said. So what are you going to do? All is fair in love, war, and football. Early on, I thought, so that first drive for Ohio State, I thought Will Howard panicked on that 3rd and 5. A little bit of a bad snap to his left. He had Travion wide open to his right, completely missed him, threw it to Emeka for 2 yards on 3rd and 5, had to punt. 3 and out. Boom. And then Indiana gets it, goes right down the field for the touchdown. Not good. I did think overall the new look offensive line held up very well. This is not the most star-laden defense you're going to see. But Indiana's got a good defense, and I thought Hinsman and Sierraveld held up well as long with the rest. I mean, Shabola got destroyed on a 2nd and 10 run. At first, I thought that was a terrible call by Chip Kelly, and I had rewatched it. And some people tell me on Twitter, it's like, I was Tegra getting blown up. He did. He got blown up. Still don't love the play call there on 2nd and 10, losing 4 yards. But overall, I thought the offensive line played well, this new look offensive line. New look again, right? I mean, a sack party. We talked about it earlier. We learned that this Ohio State defense is exactly what we thought a Knowles defense would look like. We didn't know how productive it would be necessarily. When he came in from Oklahoma State, you broke down the film. You looked at what Oklahoma State did. You're thinking, okay, they do this with Ohio State's athletes. Look out, right? And it was kind of like that the first couple of years of Knowles. It was kind of like that the first half of this year. Then it was like after the Oregon game. This is my opinion. I'm sure they'll never say this publicly, and why would they? It was almost like Ryan Day said, okay, fine, do whatever you want, Jim Knowles, with this defense. You really are the head coach of the defense now, because now we are seeing what looks like what Knowles did at Oklahoma State, just with much better athletes. And they got after them. Are they going to be perfect? No, of course not. I mean, it's hard to play defense in this. It's always been hard to play defense in football. It's really hard to play defense in this age where a lot of the rules have been tweaked to favor the offense, as you guys know. So it gets harder and harder to play defense in football. But, man, Jim Knowles is the real deal. Just look at what he's doing at Ohio State for proof. Look at what he did at Duke for proof. Look at what he did at Oklahoma State for proof. And I'll add this. I think this might be the best proof of all that Jim Knowles is a stud. He turned Oklahoma State into one of the top defenses statistically in the country. Look what Oklahoma State has done since Jim Knowles left. They went from excellent, and then the year after he left, they were like still okay. Then they were bad last year, which was 2023, and then this year they're one of the worst defenses in the country, 2024. Whereas Ohio State, boom, 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 just keeps getting better with Jim Knowles. So excellent, excellent hire. Cody Simon, have a game, my man. 2.5 sacks, sack fumble. Love seeing that out of the block O, Cody Simon. That was really, really cool. I mean, Cody Simon is epitomizes everything they want, from a leadership standpoint, from just a defensive standpoint. He was a guy that it was like, is he just a jag, or can he be a difference maker? Well, he was a difference maker tonight, and then some tonight. This afternoon. Would have liked to see them be a little more aggressive down the field, but what are you going to do? I'm not complaining. 38-15. I thought they could have really cooked Indiana down the field if they wanted to be more aggressive in that fashion. They were not. But tell you what, I like what I'm seeing out of this Ohio State defense. They should be the best defense in the country. You look at this, the talent they have, the depth they have, and the coaching. And they're playing like it. This is a legit, really good Indiana offense. Again, as you guys saw on the first drive of the game from them. And then Ohio State just shut them down. Caleb Downs getting that punt return. That is awesome. If it wasn't for Travis Hunter, we might be able to say he's the best player in the country, right? That might be a stretch, but seriously, that was really cool to see that. Also good to see Jelani Thurman had a drop. Turned into an interception. Not great, but then they got Jelani a touchdown. I thought that was really cool. So I don't know if that was completely on purpose, but I did like seeing Jelani Thurman get that touchdown. But finally getting that monkey off your back after 10 years, no kick returns, no punt returns for a touchdown. Caleb Downs goes 79 yards for a touchdown. And it felt like the game was over at that point. It kind of felt like it was over almost anyway, which looking back, that's silly to say that. It was 14-7. But Ohio State gets that stop, Indiana's deep in their territory. You feel like, Ohio State's in a great position now. 14-7, offense is getting the ball back. Buckeyes are in great shape. And then Downs is like, let me show you what great shape is. Boom, 21-7, game over. I tell you what, I almost didn't think the day could get any better. And then I just saw that the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic, is joining the show. Dean, good to see you, my friend.
Good afternoon, and good day for the Buckeyes on and off the field, too.
What do you want to start with? I was going to start on. Do we want to start off?
Either way, it's a good day either way. So let's start on the field, I guess.
Okay, let's start on. I was going to say, let's start on. I mean, early on, it's like, oh boy. And then like midway through the fourth quarter, Buckeyes looking like a juggernaut. I'm happy, Bill. I mean, Buckeyes looked like the real deal today against a very good Indiana team.
Yeah, if you want to nitpick, and I know some of our people want to nitpick, but if you want to, that's fine. The little bit of a slow start again. That's kind of been the complaint that you hear a lot, the slow starts, and it happened again today a little bit. But, and I guess the other maybe nitpick is you'd like to be able to see them when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, to be able to consistently run the ball and get what's needed. But other than that, I mean, it was dominance from that midway through the first quarter on. I didn't know what to expect, actually, Dave. I don't know how you felt, but I expected an Ohio State win, but I didn't know what to expect score-wise. And, I don't know that I think that this showed Indiana necessarily as a fraud. I think it showed Ohio State as being a really good football team.
I predicted 35-17.
No, that's really good.
I'll take it. It's close enough. I'm still waiting.
Real close.
Exactly right. But yeah, I had 35-17 Ohio State. I think Ryan Day helped me out there a little bit late. Looked like they were going to take a knee. I think part of that was like Indiana going for 2 on their previous touchdown. And as much as they've been yapping, probably more the latter. But I thought Ohio State was going to take a knee. But I wasn't mad to see Will Howard get that touchdown late.
I'm usually not on board with putting up points. But I have to say, Dave, I was like you. I was on board this time. First of all, it's not exactly like the NBA and their in-season tournament where they count points and they matter like that, but still, style points do matter a little bit. And I'm kind of with you. It seemed like there was a little bit of arrogance all week long from Bloomington, Indiana. So I think that was I have no problem with it. Let me put it that way.
Years from now, when they Google this game, instead of saying 31-15 Ohio State, it'll say 38-15 Ohio State. Let's move on and talk recruiting. What's the main thing we need to know from a big recruiting day for Ohio State, Dean?
Well, before we get to that, your predictions, if I had a little money to put on anything right now, I think I would give it to you with a prediction that close. That's a heck of a prediction.
And I had the under too. I had the you had the Ohio State covering and then the under. So yeah.
Yeah. That's very impressive to say the least. But there was 2 huge stories today already. And we're only 15 minutes, 20 minutes from the end of the game. But 2 huge stories. One before the game, elite 5-star, number 1 offensive tackle in the country, David Sanders Jr., committed to Tennessee, is at Ohio State right now. It is, of course, an unofficial visit. He's already made his official visit to Ohio State. And I'm not saying that everybody should immediately assume he's going to flip. I don't think that at all, that they should immediately assume that. But he would not be here if the interest wasn't legit. He wasn't coming up this distance, 6-7 hours, just to see Ohio State play the Indiana Hoosiers. He's got an interest. And I think it's a little bit more interest than people may give him credit for. Again, I'm not predicting a flip, but as the old saying goes, so you're telling me I have a chance.
And how much do you think like the depth situation plays into it? It's one thing to say, a true freshman doesn't, look at what Jordan Seaton's doing at Colorado. I mean, he has to feel like he can step right in and start right away if he came to
Ohio State. I talk about this all the time. In a place like Ohio State, it is so much harder than most people think to go in as a true freshman and start. I mean, it's just very few and far between, but it does happen. Jeremiah Smith is living proof of that. And he came into a situation where there is no lack of depth. I mean, they've got high 4-star and 5-star receivers stacked on top of high 4-star and 5-star receivers on that roster, yet he came in and started. With David Sanders Jr., it's not that situation. We, and I say we, meaning Ohio State, do not have 5-star offensive tackles on top of 5-star offensive tackles on the roster. We don't have that stacking there. And I think everybody expects Josh Simmons to head to the NFL, and I expect everybody expects the Josh Fryer will not. He's not back next year. The position is there for the taking, and Donovan Jackson's not coming back next year either. So you, David Sanders, have a chance, a realistic, legitimate chance to play as a true freshman at Ohio State.
All right. Did Jameer Brown already announce?
Yep, and that's the other big deal. Jameer Brown announced right about 3 o'clock that the number 1 player in the state of Ohio for the class of 2027 is committed to Ohio State. And we talked about stacking 5 stars on top of 5 stars. Well, Brian Hartline's done it again. And he's from your neck of the woods, Dave, by the way, Jameer, from Huber Heights Wayne High School. And I saw him play earlier this season, and he was absolutely electric. I mean, he was just tremendous that night. Had if I remember right, about a 45-yard touchdown pass. He caught another one about 65 yards. He was just tremendous that night. Great speed. He was offered a scholarship by Ohio State June 5th at the High State camp. And I guess it's even better when you look at a few of the schools he chose Ohio State over. Some of his top choices were Ohio State, obviously, Penn State, and what's that team we play up north now next week? That would be Michigan was another one. So, he had over 2 dozen scholarship offers, but he is a Buckeye now. And it is interesting. I said, when I talked to him earlier today, before he announced, I said, why today? Well, why 3 o'clock? Why during high school? He said, well, I was going to commit tomorrow because I'm getting baptized tomorrow. And I said, that's fantastic. That's 2 huge events in your life. He said, I just decided I didn't want to wait any longer. I know where I want to go, feel like I'm ready. So I'm doing it today at 3 o'clock. And he sure enough did.
Just space it out, man. You have your Ohio State commitment on one day, your baptism on the next.
Yeah.
I like it. So what, any surprises? I mean, I don't think that was a surprise for you. Any surprises today? Anything that was kind of off your radar that we need to know about recruiting wise?
Well, I think pretty much nobody knew except maybe the Ohio State staff. And I don't know that they knew 100% sure he was going to be here, but nobody knew yesterday, day before that David Sanders was going to show up on campus. So that was surprising. In fact, I got a call from a Tennessee person wanting to know, after I put this on Twitter, wanting to, have you confirmed this? Or is this just a thing that you expected? And I said, no. It's confirmed. He is here right now. So even the Tennessee side of it, I don't think was totally prepared for that happening. And it's a big deal. I think the other thing is when you have recruits, you got Tyler Atkinson on campus right now. He is a 2026 edge defensive end. Very top of the board target for every school in the country. He's from Georgia, and he's tweeting during the game what a fantastic time he's having at Ohio State. Usually recruits don't do that during the game, tweet how much or how well your visit's going, what a great time you're having and all that. So for Tyler Atkinson to do that, that's a positive for sure.
So where are you at? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here. Where are you at on David Sanders? Like, do you feel like the Buckeyes now have a better chance than Tennessee? I mean, how would you articulate it?
I don't know if I would say they have a better chance. I think, he's still here. Nobody media-wise, none of us type of guys have talked to him yet. And you can't we haven't got to talk to our sources yet either that are basking in the glow of this big win. So I think we need to wait and see after we talk to some people on how exactly things stand. But I will say that I did talk to somebody at Ohio State today after Sanders had been on campus here a little bit. And their comment was, we have a chance. We have a chance. And I think that's where right now I would just leave it. We have a chance, and let's see how things go when he leaves. And then I like to always give a day or two for visits to wear off. But, if you're going to be at a game and see things, I think this was a great one to be at.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it, my man. I'll let you get out of here on that. Awesome stuff, man. The David Sanders news is just really, really cool. That is like it's going to be fun to follow, to say the least. So make sure you get on Bucknuts, follow Bill's work. Thank you to the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Thank you very much, Bill.
Appreciate it, Dave. You have a great rest of the day, my friend.
If I don't talk to you, I'm sure I'll talk to you before then, but happy Thanksgiving if I don't.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Here he is, the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Love it. We'll hear from Heater in a little bit, and then we'll hear from Pat Murphy and Steve Helwagen from Ohio Stadium after post-game interviews. All about that locker room is just hopping right now. There's no doubt about it. And unlike the Penn State locker room when you're on the road, there's plenty of room right now in the Ohio State locker room. So they're having a great time, I'm sure. 38-15. Overall, a good performance from Will Howard. That first drive of the game where they went 3 and out, he completely missed Travion to his right and threw to Mecca short on 3rd and 5. But overall, again, we're going to be able to pick apart little things about Will Howard. But once again, overall, did he play well? Yes. 11-0 is, oh no, he's not 11-0. Listen to me. I almost said he's 11-0. Not 11-0. 11-1. Excuse me. 9-1 as Ohio. He's going to be 10-1 after next week. We'll put it that way. He's 9-1 as Ohio State starting quarterback and putting up a fantastic year. He will now move to second in the country in passing efficiency. Coming in today, Curtis Rourke was second and Will Howard was third. Will Howard will now be second in the country in passing efficiency. Jackson Dart is first, by the way. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart. I don't think it was a good day for Ole Miss, was it? Let me make sure I have this right. No, it wasn't. Florida. Look at Florida. Billy Napier just destroying the dreams of LSU and now Mississippi. Ole Miss out. Florida 24, Ole Miss 17. So maybe Jackson Dart will drop. And maybe Will Howard will be number 1 in the country in passing efficiency. We'll see about that. I'll tell you what. Heater is number 1 in the country in after the game analysis efficiency. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. Namaste, my friend. How are things?
Fantastic. I mean, way better than they were after about 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, that was a weird feeling, wasn't it? A lot of good stuff to talk about today. Some things to nit and pick at, but largely you got to feel good with where you're sitting right now, especially heading into the week against the team up north with the game a week from today, which I'll be at, by the way. Godfather of my children called me a couple of months ago and said, "Hey, what are you doing on November 30th?" And I said, "What do you want me to be doing on November 30th? Because I know what day that is." Anyway, feel really good. Makeshift offensive line did really well in pass protection. Had some rough go of it in spite of Travion's last huge run at the end. Prior to that, they didn't look all that great. You look at Quinshawn, averaged 2.5 per carry. Prior to that, it looks like Trey had about 30 yards on 8 carries, somewhere in there. So not exactly a great day for either one of them. You got to work on that run blocking. The defense, I was frustrated on the first drive. It felt like we were we were not getting pressure where we needed to. And after that, the floodgates kind of opened, and you saw sack and pressure and pressure and sack, and it was wonderful to see. A couple of those, they just threw so many hats that the Indiana had no chance to cover up, put a hat on every hat. And aside from Igbinosun, who seems to have a penalty on every play that he has going his way, which is ridiculously frustrating. It was a good day. It was a good day. And hey, a punt return for a touchdown for the first time in a decade. You and I talked at the beginning of the year and said, "Oh, it's going to be Brandon Ennis. Guarantee he's going to get one before the end of the year. The year's not over." But I did not have Caleb Downs against Indiana on my bingo card.
Well, and it's not lost on me that it was Jalen Marshall 10 years ago against Indiana. Jalen Marshall had 3 touchdowns, in different ways. But so that was the last time Ohio State had a kick or a punt return for a touchdown. Heater, I love it because putting Caleb Downs at punt return, and that's one thing a lot of people talk about. He did have the 1 return for a touchdown at Alabama last year, but he only returned I think 5 punts, something like that, as a true freshman at Alabama last year. That's one of those things that was fun to talk about. And I'm like, okay, hopefully Ohio State actually does that. That seems like one of those things that we talk about that should happen, would be fun to happen, but might not happen. And then what happened? Year started, it didn't happen. Then it happened, and I love it. It wasn't like a lucky punt return where he caught it and just like the Red Sea parted. He made a guy miss, then he did a spin move, and then made another guy miss and showed his speed and cut it. It was a really, really good punt return, and it basically game over at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a couple of things on that. One, you're 100% correct. That was not just pick a direction and go. He had to do a little bit of weave. It certainly had that beautiful spin move. I did not realize his straight on speed was that fast. You never see him going. You always see him going downhill towards the line, which is not straightaway speed. And this was the first time you really had a chance to see that this year, and it was pretty doggone good. I really enjoyed seeing it. It reminded me of another number 2 safety that returned punts about 22 years ago, and that was another All-American safety that did that 22 years ago. So that was really, really good to see. I would also throw in the punting miscue on the snap for them. I have no idea. The only thing I could think of that was it was a wet ball and it went through his hands. It was right where it needed to be. Prior to the snap, I was like, bad snap. It's going to be a bad snap. It was a great snap. It was terrible execution by the punter, and there wasn't much he could do after that. Did this game kind of remind you? I don't know what I was downstairs prepping. We're having our Thanksgiving with my wife's parents today, so I was downstairs after the game prepping some meal stuff. So I didn't hear stuff that you may have talked about already. Did this remind you in terms of how we left 14 points on the field easily? It should have been 2 more scores before half. This reminded me of 2005 season Fiesta Bowl against Notre Dame, where we just left at least 17 points on the field then. And it felt a lot like that.
I have not got into that yet, and I was not happy. I talked about this on Bucknuts. I talked about this on Twitter. Why, when you get 4th and less than 1 from the 2, are you not running a QB sneak with Will Howard? And listen, I joked about like Chip Kelly's familiar with the Philadelphia Eagles last time I checked.
Yeah.
Seriously, man. And they've actually done a good job this year with the Q sneaks. Penn State's the best example. You're backed up to your own 1-yard line. You do quarterback sneak, you get 4 yards. Why in the hell are you going shotgun there? It reminded me of something. Most of the stuff Urban did, I loved. That was the one thing that always flummoxed me. Is like, how come you're always going shotgun on 4th and inches? And you'd be like, because we don't practice ever under center. We know this team does practice under center. And I know Hinsman, this is his first start at center this year. They still practice it. They did it
during the game.
Right. So that was so stupid. And they're fortunate that it didn't cost them.
So absolutely. Game was still in the balance at that point, right? You felt good going into it in terms of talent matchup. If you just look at star rating and rankings, etc. But I had in my immediately after the game analysis in my heroes and zeros, I had him as a 0. Chip Kelly as a 0 solely for that play, even wrote it that way. And then later on in the game, when they racked up all these other points, I said, okay, well, I'll take the 0 down, but I'm going to talk about it in the post game. Because when you have a guy who's 6'4", 6'5", whatever he is, 230, 235 pounds, whatever he is, he's not a small man. He's not a small human. And to give yourself up 4 yards and shotgun, and then to hand it off and lose an extra helmet that could be doing the tush push behind you, it just feels like it's not a smart play. You are a half a yard, 18 inches, man, from a first down and an eventual score. And I had no idea what was going through Chip Kelly's mind at the time. It was whatever it was not smart, because that was the exact wrong play to call. The only other hang up I had about offensive calls at the end of the game, Ryan should have taken a knee. And I know fans out there will be like, no, you score whenever you can. It was clear that you didn't need to, obviously. And it leads the bad blood later. I don't think you needed to score. I don't think it sends a statement to anybody. I don't think that sent a statement to Michigan. I don't think it sent a statement to our fans. I don't think it sent a statement to Indiana that don't mess with the big dog. I think it was just something that was unnecessary.
I think it did send a statement to Indiana, don't mess with the big dog. I do. I agree with everything up until then, because I think, and we know you say things, it was basically a pep rally. But when you put Ohio State in your mouth and you say Ohio State sucks,
that's fair.
Right? And you can see Ryan Day, like when he was asked on McAfee yesterday, McAfee's like, "Oh, this Indiana team is legit," and Ryan Day was like, "So are we." It's like you can tell he was ready for this. Like all the yapping had pissed him off.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I watched that clip, and you portrayed it exactly right. It wasn't a flippant statement, and it wasn't a laugh line. It was, hey, legit, give us the respect that if I'm Ryan Day, give us the respect that we've earned. We have one loss by one on the road at night against the now number one team in the nation that took a penalty and a rule change because it was so egregious that the NCAA changed the rules in the middle of the season, and an offensive pass interference that wouldn't have been called 99 times out of 100. Maybe that's an overstatement. Let's say 85 times out of 100. It took all of that for a 1-point loss. And oh, by the way, there's still 1 second on the clock because they didn't award the timeout. There's a million different things that went into that loss that could have made it a win. It's still a loss, but give the team the respect that it's due, especially after a couple of weeks ago, they went up against Penn State. And on that last drive that they had, starting at the 1 yard line or whatever it was, and saying, hey, we're just going to run the ball down your throat and we're going to chew up the rest of the clock, and there's nothing you can do about it. Against, oh, by the way, a top 5 team. And so there you have 2 out of 3 wins against top 5 teams, and we can debate whether or not Indiana deserved to be a top 5 team. By record, they certainly did deserve it. And so it is a 2 top 5 team win this year plus a 1-point loss. And nobody a year from now is going to say, well, you just had the 1-point loss. But in the moment, those are very easily – it doesn't take a large stretch to say you could be 3-0. Ryan Day could be 3-0 against top 5 teams this year. He's 2-1. He has some of the monkey off of his back, and a lot of the monkey will come off his back this coming Saturday when they take on the team up north in the game. And you know that if he's going for a touchdown with a minute and a half to go, or a minute to go against Indiana, he is going to do whatever he can to run up that score. Maybe he ain't going to hang 100 on him, but he wants to.
Yeah, hopefully he goes for 2 because he can't go for 3.
Amen.
Hey, have a day, Cody Simon. Look out, baby. Let's go. Let's go, Blocko.
Absolutely. Listed on my heroes list. I think he had 2.5.
Yeah.
And then JT had 2 as well, or 2.5.
Yeah. I think JT.
Yeah. So it was great to see them.
Jack combining for a sack after combining for a sack, fumble, touchdown. Look at these guys.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. And it is so much fun to watch that defensive line now and the blitzers coming in, not just go straight up and rush right into the guy in front of them, do some spins, do some stunts, do some crossovers, etc. It is so much fun to actually watch them freelance a little when they can. Now, you saw a little bit of where that can go bad on the last drive from Indiana when Rourke had the option. He saw the defensive end crash, and so he took it around the end there for 15, 20 yards, whatever it was. So you see some of the bad part of that. But they were probably in, hey, I'm going to pin my ears back because I know they have to pass mentality, and they got one by them. I'm not going to complain too much about that. Hey, by the way, let me ask you a question. I put it in my immediately after the game analysis. Having watched all the games, if you had told me without looking at the stats that Sonny Styles was your tackling leader coming into this game, I would have told you you're crazy. I would not have, watching the games, thought, oh yeah, he's the leading tackler on the team. But he sure as heck was coming into today. Now today, I don't think he expanded that, but either way, the point of it all is that coming into the season, it was, hey, he needs to step up. It's a position change. I would say if he's the leading tackler after that position change, you have a successful position change, and he's gotten better with each passing game. If you remember early in the season, he was still in the, very, very much less instinctual and more, let me read and react to what's going on here. And now he is playing much freer, much looser, and much more instinctual from that position. It's great to see.
It's funny you bring that up, Peter, because I looked at that, I was looking at Ohio State stats a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I was like, oh, Sonny leads the team in tackles? Yeah, just like you're saying. And I don't think it's even that close because, obviously with combined solo and assists, I guess it makes sense. The more, but yeah, I'm with you. That kind of took me by surprise. And he continues to get better. And I'm not saying he's playing great, but he continues to get better and better and better. He's a guy that should still be a sophomore, first year playing linebacker ever. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing out of him. And Knowles, I'm seeing I talked about this earlier in the show. What I'm seeing from this defense is what we saw on film from Oklahoma State when Knowles was there.
Mm-hmm.
Just this, as far as the scheme, just with much better players. And there's no more of a disconnect. I'm not seeing a disconnect from what the back seven's doing and what the front four is doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is a much more creative and I think in many ways more productive defense right now. Case in point, take a look at that first drive. They had 70 yards for, that they gave up. They gave up 158 for the entire game. So the remaining 3.5 quarters, they gave up 78 yards. That's or 88 yards. That's pretty doggone good public math. And they lost a total of 75 yards on sacks and et cetera. That's fantastic. 75 yards in a single game. That's awesome.
I love seeing how and they're not just being aggressive. You can be recklessly aggressive. I love how tactically aggressive they're being. I can't say this enough about Jim Knowles. And we can use a lot of things. How about look at Oklahoma State, how he turns Oklahoma State into a top 5 defense. And after he leaves Oklahoma State, what happens? They plummet back each year. They get a little, and this year they're terrible. I think a lot of people were kind of hard on Jim Knowles, and now it's how you like me now?
Oh, absolutely. Misspeak. It was 151 total yards, not 158. So having said all of that, right? Not to get ahead of myself or ahead of you as the host, but Michigan is right around the corner. It is this week. It's a week away, and after 3 straight losses, they're going to be absolutely dying to drive home the point that Ohio State is the big dog in the Big Ten. So I feel really good about it. Even though it's a rivalry game, I feel really, really good about where the team is, how they have continued with each week to improve as they've gone along. And I'm not giving out a score prediction, but I'll tell you the score prediction is going to be 42-9.
You're not giving out a score prediction, but you're going to give out. They do have a great field goal kicker who just kicked one from about 55 yards.
Right, that's their 9.
That's their guy.
Yeah.
They do have a very good – he's got a year left of eligibility. He should just go pro. The Raiders will probably draft him in the first round. They've got an excellent field goal kicker. They really do. They're in big, big trouble coming to Columbus next week.
100%.
They're already resting up for it.
100% believe that they are going to have all kinds of problems. They still have a formidable defensive line, no doubt. What's his the name just slipped my mind. He missed the game today.
Will Johnson.
Thank you. And they said he's may not play next week as well.
Getting ready for the draft?
It could be. Why risk anything at this point?
Right.
You know that you have enough on your resume and you're going to do well enough on pro day that you don't have to risk anything else. Why
has him as a top 5 pick. I mean, Mason Graham's going to play, to your point. I mean, Michigan, where they're, I mean, Will Johnson's obviously excellent, but like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, fantastic D tackles. Their defense is legit. I mean, their offense, if Ohio State doesn't do anything stupid and lose the turnover battle like 3-0 or 4-1, Buckeyes are going to win this game going away. They just can't afford to shoot themselves in the foot multiple times because this Michigan offense is so pedestrian. Ohio State can play its C+ game and win this game in the horseshoe. They cannot play a D- game though.
No, agreed. I think as long as Ryan Day doesn't get the yips because he sees the helmet, they should be good. The offense that Michigan has is absolutely offensive. It has taken college football back decades, and to watch what they put on that every year and coming off a national championship, air fingers quote, national championship year last year, to see what they're putting out there this year is an abomination for what it should be in the aftermath of. I cannot think of a team that's had that kind of fall off, this kind of fall off, certainly on one side of the ball, after a national championship that would compare anything like this. It's absolutely insane. And this, maybe we think Central Florida and their self-proclaimed national championship from the
yeah, because like anything Scott Frost does that people want to definitely parrot that. Let me ask you this, my friend, because this is going to be a hot topic of conversation all week. Let's assume Indiana takes care of business next week and they smack Purdue. They don't just win by a field goal. They don't just win by 7, but they don't have to win by 56. Let's say they beat Purdue by 3 or 4 touchdowns, whatever. Is 11-1 Indiana a lock to make the CFP? Even as a 10 seed, 11 seed, is Indiana a lock to at least make it, in your opinion?
Indiana is not a lock to make it. However, Indiana should make it. If they take care of business, Indiana should make it. I'm going to say they're not a lock only because the committee comes out with some crazy stuff, and there seems to be a want and a narrative that is developing right now before our eyes that will make you question whether or not an 11-1 team should be in. This is a major conference. It's one of the 2 best conferences in the nation. You could argue that it's better, that the best conference in the nation this year if you want. I mean, they have 4 of the top 5 teams right now in the top 5 prior to voting on tomorrow.
Did have it. Yeah.
What's that?
yeah. As you were saying, like, did have that.
Yeah. Prior to, but you're to sit there and say you have that, and this team that has achieved all year cannot have a slip up. And if you remove the helmet and don't understand the name of the team behind it, the resume looks remarkably close to Texas.
Go ahead.
And Texas is ranked, with their loss on there, they're ranked what, number 3 right now? Yeah. But if we take it and just look at resume, strip away anything we know about the team colors, the helmets, and the logos, their resumes are remarkably similar. And by the way, let's give some credit to Ohio State. They came into the horseshoe against the number 2 team in the nation that has played 2 prior top 5 teams. And so they're battle tested. Let's give some props to Ohio State that this would not be an easy game for Indiana. It's the first time they've had a top 5 matchup in forever. And for you to sit there and say, yeah, they're not worth it. I would have to say, as a 10, 11, 12 seed, whatever it is, they would certainly, if I were to take them and rack them up against BYU, yes, they would beat BYU. BYU's going to, it depending on how things track out now, they're 12th seed right now. Would they beat, who else is in there? They're a top 12 team at this point. The record says it.
Top 11, obviously, because group of 5. Here's why I think they are a lock.
Yeah.
Because the committee already had them as a top 5 team. Everybody's like, well, what about their strength of schedule? The committee knows their strength of schedule coming into today and had them as 5th. And I'm sure factored in that they've been blowing out teams left and right. They didn't blow out Michigan last week. Maryland was only 14 points, which was their closest game before that. That's because Indiana, I think they had 6 turnovers that game. The committee considered them the 5th best team in the country coming into this week. They go to number 2 Ohio State. And I came into this heater saying, as long as they don't get beaten, I couldn't put an exact number on it, but I was like, oh, how about I do? How about I do put an exact number? They can't get beat by more than 30. I was thinking maybe more like 40. They can't get beat like something like, 49-7 or something like that. But I ended up with 30, and here we are with the committee. They know this game was a legit game. Ohio State scored a late touchdown to make it, a 23-point game. I thought as long as Indiana didn't get completely blown out, because this game was in Columbus, because Ohio State's the number 2 team in the country, because the committee already had that number 5, I can't see the committee dropping them from 5th to 12th. I think they're still going to be in.
So I think that's fair. I just hesitate to say lock. If in my world, if I'm on the committee, I am putting them in. I don't know that the committee is going to do it, because when I think back to some of the stuff they did this past week, where who was it Alabama that played Mercer and went up? I'm like, it's Mercer.
I mean, who are you to talk about Mercer? I didn't see them play this. Maybe they're really good. I don't know.
Get Mercer out of your mouth.
Hey, you shut your mouth when you're talking about Mercer.
I just think there's a bias towards. There's clearly a bias, and should be, towards the larger conferences. Right. And towards the blue bloods, because they have produced at the level that would make them a blue blood. Right. So I get it. They also draw in ratings that would make them a blue blood, which at the end of the day, this is all about, dollars and cents. Right. And so to have kind of Johnny come lately out of Indiana to say, hey, what about me, guys? I understand why the narrative would be, hey, I'd rather take a 2-loss Georgia or a 2-loss Alabama or a 3-loss Georgia in here, because they fill seats and they drive ratings. I get it. I would not want that, and if I were on the committee, I would argue against it. But I don't know what the committee's going to do. That's why I don't say lock. You and I agree that they should be. I just don't think it's a lock.
Okay, I hear you. That you make a salient argument. I shouldn't say lock, because lock means 100% for being literal.
We both agree that
I think they are a lock, but I hear you. Even if it's 99.9, that's not a lock. By the way, Ole Miss losing helps Indiana.
Oh, yeah. State. Whatever shakes out today changes my entire argument. They're in. It's a lock. I forgot Ole Miss won.
Now it's a lock. No, I thought you already knew.
Ole Miss lost.
Well, yeah, Ole Miss. Yeah, Ole Miss lost. So Ole Miss out. By the way, Minnesota's leading Penn State. Minnesota has the ball in Penn State territory. End of the first quarter. Minnesota 7, Penn State nothing in Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What I didn't even see what happened with Tennessee. They were nothing at halftime or something.
Let's see that one. It's like we were almost paying attention to the Ohio State game too much. Let's look that up. Looked like McCord and Syracuse won 31.
Oh, that 56
over UConn. I'm scrolling up. Is Tennessee?
Oh yeah, Tennessee destroyed them. It's fine. It was against UTEP, which you would anticipate. But by the way, let's talk one other thing, if we can. I am so disgustingly sick and tired of the SEC playing FCS teams and low-level FBS teams in November. It is ridiculous. Mercer, Georgia's playing UMass, Tennessee's playing UTEP. It's one of those things where South Carolina's playing Wofford. It's one of those things where that's your pre-conference schedule. That's what September is for. November is for when you are lining up to get ready to go, not healing up because you get to play all your reserves for 3.5 quarters. It's ridiculous, and it's nothing but exactly what I said. let me set it up so I can be strong going in down the stretch. This is when you should be battle testing going down the stretch and proving out that you are a tough team built on your September records against Wofford and the Citadel, Clemson, looking at you, Clemson, and all of those teams. It's absolutely disgusting to me.
It really is ridiculous. We'll get you out of here on this. Did you like what you saw from the new look offensive line? I feel like they cannot afford any more injuries on the offensive line. But my gosh, like we're not talking probably enough about Hinsman and Seyerveld. Is it Seyerveld or Seyerveld? Seyerveld.
Yeah. I like what they brought in pass protection. I thought they looked really good. I mean, Will had to scramble a couple of times. He didn't have a lot of times where he got hit. Wound up having enough time to go 22 of 26. Kudos to him, by the way. And kudos to him that he's won 2 games against top 5 competition and gets no mention in the Heisman. I mean, come on, let's be serious here. If Rourke can be mentioned, he can as well. But back to the offensive line, like what they did in pass protection, they need a lot of work yet in run blocking, because next week they're gonna have their feet to the fire on it. So hopefully they can fix that coming up in the next 7 days.
Yeah, Northwestern's not putting up much of a fight. Northwestern about to punt back to Michigan at the Big House. 12 minutes left in the second quarter. Northwestern trailing 10-0. Michigan about to get the ball back. Great stuff, Heater. Appreciate it, man. Get on Bucknuts. Read Heaters immediately after the game analysis. I appreciate it, my man.
My man, have a good one.
He is my man in Amsterdam. Now we're going to talk to my man at Ohio Stadium, Patrick Murphy. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
I think we should call Heater's post-game thing Heater's Heat or something along those lines. I don't know. It just popped in my head. Yeah, he brings it hot.
Coming hot. Well, he does the heroes or zeros. We could just call it Heater's heroes and zeros.
That's true. That's true. We can workshop this in the off season.
People get a little too literal when he does the zeros. They're like, how dare you call so-and-so a zero? It's like, it's not literal. Like, or if you knew Heater, like he's like as good of a guy as they come. Like, he's not really meaning that Chip Kelly's a zero or name a player. How dare you call Tegra Shabola a zero? It's like, he doesn't mean it literally. It's like just a sports terminology. Anyway, go ahead.
People got mad at me a few years ago because I did a story on, it was the first year of the transfer portal, and I did a story on potential Ohio State departing transfers, and now that's like a common thing that people do. So I get it. Can't make everyone happy.
So you're a trendsetter is what you're saying.
I guess, yeah, maybe.
I thought that's what you were getting at. Patrick Murphy, trendsetter. He articulates it the best. All right, so your thoughts on this game. I mean, you come into this game, I told you 38-15 Ohio State, you'd be like, oh, damn, like, geez. Just your thoughts coming away from this. How should an Ohio State fan feel coming out of this game?
Yeah, well, first of all, I've learned not to tell people how to feel about games.
That was a weird way to say it. Yeah.
I've also gotten in trouble for that one. No, I think you feel fine. Look, we were just in the post game, and I was kind of moving around a decent amount from guys, but a common thing was that the Buckeyes left points on the board, and they know that. Will Howard said it, Jack Sawyer said it. It could have been, or Emeka Egbuka said it was the other one. Could have been 10 more points at least if they just finished those drives in the red zone and whatnot. So they know that there's still things to clean up. Emeka Egbuka was asked directly, with the way you perform today, can this team win a national championship? And he said, of course we can win a national championship, but like we can't perform like this. We have to get better. So they understand it. I don't know why the slow starts have become a trend for this team this year. And it hasn't been every game. They started well at Oregon. Even Penn State, you take out the interception, they're moving the ball a little bit. They throw the interception, but then they're moving the ball fine after that. Defensively, the last couple weeks, it's been slow starts. So certainly something I think they need to address. But once again, Ryan Day talks about it. I wrote about it on Friday. The middle 8, those 4 minutes before and after halftime, they once again got things going in that period. And I think that's, how the Buckeyes have come away with wins this year. I think Indiana, obviously showed some things. I think it would be still difficult to it's still difficult for me to kind of assess exactly where this team belongs in the pecking order, but that's not my job. So, yeah, I think it's a good win for Ohio State. I think they are excited with reasonable understanding of what's coming next week and how quickly they need to turn their attention there.
Yeah, tell me about post-game interviews. Well, obviously, I'm sure Michigan
Yeah.
was the topic of conversation. What stood out about post-game interviews?
Yeah, I spent the most time with Jack Sawyer, and he just kept, he's getting asked a lot, obviously being part of the ringleader of guys to come back. And he made it very clear, this is why we came. They've been waiting, nearly a year now, however long it's been, to get back on Michigan. He said, he has been tired of hearing all the stuff about Coach Day, especially when it comes to that game. He referenced Coach Day in particular. So you could sense the passion. He even said, no offense to you guys, but I don't even really want to talk about the Indiana game. So, and then Will Howard, obviously he has not played in one of those, but the message has been conveyed, except he did slip once. He caught himself, but he did say Michigan one time. He fixed it though. But yeah, he said a similar thing. He started listing all of the 4 or 5 year guys that he wants to win for. He talked about all the stuff that gets said about Coach Day as well. And they clearly are very focused on making things right. Caden Curry even mentioned the word cheated at one point to the guys that have been here for 4 years and haven't beaten Michigan. Now, that may have been because the question was phrased about not having a Michigan game in 2020. But I think Buckeye fans will obviously read into that word when it comes to that program for sure.
It's the first time since the early Cooper era, a few years into the Cooper era, where nobody on the team has gold pants. So you're talking like 92, 93, because 92 they had the tie, 93, 90. Finally, they won in 94. It's been since then. You have an entire team of Buckeyes. Nobody has any gold pants.
That's crazy. I mean, just with how, and look, obviously the rivalry has gone back and forth throughout its history, but with the way things were going and the talent that Ohio State's had, it's not like this Ohio State team these last 3 years was Michigan for, a good chunk of the end of Tressel and beginning of Urban's time. This was a really talented team. Yeah, there were some issues. Obviously, we've talked about that in the past. So crazy to think about that. Obviously, we could talk about what happened with the Stallion stuff. I think last year's game was a fair reflection of what an Ohio State-Michigan game is when both teams are good, right? It's a good game. Ohio State lost on, a final drive on the road against a team that went on to win the national championship. You don't like it, but that's the kind of game you're probably more okay with losing. I don't expect that to be what next week's game looks like. Somebody said to me earlier today, what do you think they hang on them if they can? And honestly, I assume Ohio State, if Ryan Day and the rest of the staff, these players have their way, I assume they put as many points on the board and keep Michigan out of the end zone as many times as possible next week.
I think the early line's like 23.5.
I saw that.
State. I've been like talking like a lot of smack, being like, Ohio State's gonna hammer. And then I saw that line, I'm like, oh, that's kind of big. No, but I get it. I mean, I'm watching. I mean, Michigan right now is leading Northwestern 10-0, but this Michigan offense is so pedestrian. I just feel like if Ohio State doesn't, interception Northwestern deep in Michigan territory. Davis Warren throws an interception. Northwestern now has the ball. Michigan's 20. I feel like if Ohio State doesn't shoot itself in the foot, they're going to take care of business and then some. Before we get Steve Helwagen in there, real quick. There's been some various opinions on Ryan Day getting that touchdown late. Your thoughts on that? Them punching that in that late touchdown, giving it somebody that maybe in future years they'll Google the score or something,
Yeah, I didn't hear what Ryan Day said about that because I was talking with Sawyer at the time, so I don't know if he was asked about it. Will Howard was asked about it, though. First, he was asked about Travion Henderson sliding, and he said he told Travion, "You're a better man than me. On a play like that, I'm going in the end zone."
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah. I said to the guy standing next to me, because we were down here at that point, I was like, you don't need to slide at that point. Like, I mean, I get why teams do it. Obviously, we've seen, leads be blown before, but, and Will Howard's talked about that actually a few weeks back. He talked about it with the Penn State slide, but in a situation like that, you're up 16, I think at the time, or whatever it was.
Right.
Yeah, like,
Right.
you could score that. So, and Will Howard said, look, it wasn't meant to be disrespectful, but we get down on the 1 yard line, we're punching that thing in there. And, Ryan Day this season has been not that I asked him about it fairly early on in the year because he talked about like these metrics and whatnot when talking about the college football playoff rankings. I think he just wants to make sure, that the Buckeyes, assuming they handle their business, are that number 1 seed in the new 12-team format. I was curious to see maybe in a situation like that, do you kind of try and help Indiana out by not blowing them out in order to kind of strengthen your resume by making sure people still think that they are a top 10, top 5 team, whatever it is. I don't think Ohio State cared about that as I expected, but I will be interested to hear kind of the national conversation, the college football playoff committee's thoughts on Indiana coming out of this one, because there were some good things the Hoosiers did and obviously kept it close early on. So I think it probably works out all right for Ohio State. One quick thing before you bring Steve in, and I can't believe you didn't ask me about it. I'm sure you've talked about it already, but the Caleb Downs punt return.
Oh my God.
I've been predicting every week in our bold predictions that they would finally do it. Ryan Day guaranteed it on the radio show before the first game. So I felt safe. And I thought we'd have this done and dusted by like week 3 in one of the non-conference games. And I could go on to other bold predictions. And as I wrote this week, it becomes bolder every week when it doesn't happen. So glad Caleb got that done. He seemed like the right guy to do it. I know Ohio State has other athletes, other guys who would be perfectly capable of doing it, but with the way that he's come in and, we've heard about what he can do with the ball in his hands. He hasn't played running back yet. Maybe keep that in mind for next week if they need him. But
well, Patrick,
if
you want to be truly bold, go back to back. Predict there's going to be a punt return next week against Michigan. Yeah. Go Johnny Vandermeer on me.
What's crazy about this is it was almost exactly 10 years against Indiana in the second to last game of the season when Jalen Marshall returned that punt. So maybe they were just waiting for it to be a little serendipitous.
And per Jalen Marshall, you have to then go on to win the national championship. That's the rule.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. If you're going to wait 10 years, you might as well end it on a good note.
First year of the 4-team playoff, Ohio State wins. Exactly. First year of the 12-team playoff, Ohio State wins. Okay, I'm okay with that. All right, good stuff, Patrick. Appreciate it, my man.
All right, talk to you later, Dave.
Great stuff out of Patrick Murphy. Let's bring in Steve Helwagen, also live from the Horseshoe, the bowels of the Horseshoe. Steve Helwagen, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on?
Anything from a post-game? By the way, Michigan 10-3 with Northwestern kicked the field goal 10-3. Anything from post-game interviews stand out that the people need to know about, Steve?
I don't think that they viewed it that they were running the score up on Indiana. I think they were just putting an exclamation point on the victory. Obviously, I reiterate what you and Patrick said. Caleb Downs, he caught a punt early in the game. He had a 12-yard return to help set up the first touchdown. Returned it to the 44-yard line of Indiana. And one of my buddies texts me and says, why are they putting him on punt returns? He hasn't done it that much. Aren't you worried that he might muff one or whatever? And I was like, the dude is a freak. So, that you're kind of push-pulling on that. You're hoping to spark something. Well, we're here at the stadium, and we've got about a 10 to 15-second delay on you all out there in TV land. And about the time he starts cutting that one back toward the middle of the field, and you can tell he's gonna take it the distance, I grab my phone and I start to hit a text.
You guys are about to be happy.
It read something like, "That's why Day," I said, "That's why Downs," is what I said. So, and then my other buddy, who's on a real long delay on YouTube TV, they're like on a minute delay or something, and he's like, "What's going on? I'm way behind." I go, all I put down was 79 YDPR. So
we're allowed to do that still. You're allowed. Yes. You're allowed to return punts for touchdowns. Let me ask you this before we get back to Ohio State. I think Indiana's a lock to get in now, maybe as the 11 seed or the 10 seed, but because the committee already had them fit. It wasn't like the committee had them 8th. And they go to number 2 Ohio State. I'm assuming they're going to beat Purdue and beat them good. Not like the committee had them 8th, Steve, and then they would drop them to 12th or 13th. They had them 5th. I can't, and you lose at Ohio State in a game that really was competitive. I can't see Indiana dropping past 11th. I think they're a lock. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've maintained that all along, that 11-1 Indiana is in. And here's why. They came into this game 10-0 with an average margin of victory of 30 points. If they were beating Washington by 5 points and Michigan State or Northwestern or, Nebraska, all these other teams by 5 or 6 points, then I'd say, they just got lucky. They just kind of scrimped by. I think that their dominance, even against lesser opponents, I think is impressive. And I think they were in this game until early third quarter, and then it really
turned.
Yeah,
right?
The punt return.
Basically, the punt return was like, shh.
Yeah. So, to me, they're a quality team. They didn't have 60 minutes of football in them here today, unfortunately for them. Ohio, as I believed and as we've seen, I saw it last week, Ohio State's physicality up front on offense and defense just wears these teams down and wears them into submission. Indiana wanted no part of the last 10 minutes of this game. They were in the fetal position, about ready, to get out of here. So, they did drive down and score. It was the hat trick for Davison Igbinosun today, by the way. How about what I texted you, what Gus said about Davison? Oh, and guess who? Let's see. What was it?
There was even a play where Igbinosun was getting dragged by the running back. I'm like, and I said, that's the one time that Igbinosun's holding, and it's not even a penalty. He's holding on to the jersey as he gets dragged down the field.
This was Gus Johnson on the third one. And guess who? Igbinosun, as usual, he has no problem holding and grabbing. So they can put mitts on him. They can, throw one-on-ones his way all day for 7 days, and it ain't going to change. The over-under on his PIs next week, although it's Michigan, 1.5 probably next week. So
our boy Davis Warren threw an interception. Michigan was in complete control, 10-0, had the ball. Davis Warren throws an interception. Northwestern kicks a field goal. Now it's 10-3. Now we got a ball game in Ann Arbor. Steve, we'll get you out of here on this. Like, how do you feel? Here's my thing on next week, and I know anything can happen in the Ohio State-Michigan game. But, man, this game's in Columbus. It's interesting. This is only the second time Ryan Day is going to get a chance to face Michigan as a head coach in Columbus. This is his 6th year because of that 2020 game getting canceled. I feel like if Ohio State doesn't shoot themselves in the foot multiple times, as I said earlier, I think Ohio State can play their C game and win this game. They just can't play like a D- game or an F game.
Yeah, it can't be like 1996 where you get it down inside the 2-yard line and you don't score a touchdown and you kick 3 field goals and then your All-American cornerback falls down and gives up a touchdown. You slip on a banana peel and you have no reason in any reason to lose the game, and you did. That was just absurd. So that can't happen. You got to come out and, as Coach said, their motto is leave no doubt. And they left no doubt today. They were the better team over the 60 minutes, and I think they will do precisely that next Saturday. Was it the All-American girl, Jenny Taft, asked him what to expect next week, and he said the same thing you saw today. So there's 106,000 Buckeye fans that were here, be here next week, and 12 million Ohioans, all of Buckeye Nation expecting nothing less 1 week from today right here at historic Ohio Stadium, the latest chapter in the greatest rivalry in all of sports. Ohio State snaps the 3-game losing streak to Michigan and punches its ticket to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game and a rematch with number 1 ranked and undefeated Oregon. That's all on the line here next Saturday, 12 o'clock. Be there or be square.
I think right after the game, maybe at halftime, Steve, you should make reservations for St. Elmo.
I'm going to make him tomorrow, probably.
The night before the Big Ten.
I'm going to jinx it. I'm going to jinx it, Dave.
Don't jinx it. Well, whatever. I don't even.
Yeah, it's not jinx.
Again,
it's not jinx.
Will Howard could play left-handed next week and they'll win.
The next time this team loses is like a 23-point home favorite would be like the first time. So I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Bucknutters, if you can't be at the game in Columbus next week, maybe you can come to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. Either way, Steve Helwagen and I will say hi to you. Steve, great stuff, man. I appreciate it.
All right, bro. Be good. Be good. It sucks watching, having them win games like this, doesn't it? I got up and walked around early in the fourth quarter. I was like, I'm going to go take a walk in the park. This is no fuss, no muss, no tense moments. They got it out of hand early. The defense, Dave, on the first drive, Indiana went 10 plays, 70 yards. The rest of the game, they ran 49 plays and got like 78 yards, an average of 1.7 yards per play. Ohio State took the car door, as I love to say, in moments like this, and they slammed it on their head. And that's what you do in a top 5 game. So there you go.
Great stuff out of Steve Helwagen. Appreciate it, bud.
All right.
There you go. All right. I have nothing left to say. We have said it all. I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks to all of my guests. Thanks to the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Thanks to Heater, a.k.a. Heath Schneider, a.k.a. Heath Schneider. I should know how to pronounce his name by now. Thanks to Patrick Murphy. Thanks to Steve Helwagen. And, of course, thanks to all of you. Large audience here. Really appreciate that. So thanks very much to all of you. Hope everyone has a great day and a great rest of your weekend. Go Bucks.